ready?
Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up. I'm all the way up. I'm all the way up.
Good morning, Vietnam.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Money
Morning.
Matrix podcast. I'm Meyer Delisle. In the studio with me,
Jason Mantione, hello.
and then across the ways on the TV screens, we got Alan Hastings representing Gavin Newsom.
That's right.
Where are you located today?
I'm here representing common sense.
We're
and
representing
and
common sense.
morality.
Perfect. So
Yeah.
before we get started, we want to do a moment of silence for 9/11, for all those that we lost, and Charlie Kirk, which was horrible yesterday. So let's take a minute for that. All right. So today's episode, we're going to start with a bunch of different things we got going on here. We have the CPI numbers, the PPI numbers, the initial jobless claim numbers came out this week, which was pretty interesting. And then we have a little bit about, what do we have, Alan? Lisa Cook in here too, or we don't have Lisa Cook in here?
No, it's the CPI, PPI jobs numbers, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the BLS Jobs Revisions, like how that works.
Yeah, that was big. And then we're going to talk about Charlie Kirk.
That's
So
right.
let's start with the number side of it, because I know that's usually your thing. So let's start with that. Let's break down
Sure.
the CPI is the consumer price index. That's what affects me and you as general population. And the PPI is producer price index. That's the wholesale level. That's the Walmarts of the world, Costco. Those are the numbers. So let's start with that and the initial jobless claims, and then we'll go from there.
So the CPI numbers just came out. CPI rose 0.4% month over month, up from 0.2% in July. The year-over-year inflation, all items, is plus 2.9% in August, which is the highest 12-month gain since January. The core CPI rose 0.3% month over month. The year-over-year core inflation is 3.1%. They're subscribed to the Barry Habib MBS Highway podcast. We heard his breakdown of it this morning. The largest factors were shelter, food, and energy. Shelter costs rose 0.4% in August, the largest single factor in the monthly CPI increase ever.
The way they weigh the numbers is ridiculous. They call that same group of people that they poll for the BLS numbers and be like, if you were to rent your house, what would you rent it for? And that's what they factor into the shelter numbers. This is what the average rental would be, which is pure nonsense because anyone can come up with any number. There's an emotional attachment to it. If you're proud of your home and whatever, yeah, my home can rent for $5,000. But meanwhile, the market's $3,000. But they don't know. They just take that number and take it for face value. Now, one thing Barry did say is you can still use that same methodology, just don't put so much weight on that shelter component. Because right now, the shelter component comprises 40% of the CPI number. So that's a huge number to have such a variable. I personally think that they're going to look at all these factors and see what works and what doesn't, because it doesn't make sense to have such randomness, in my opinion. I don't know what you guys think, but random people saying, yeah, I'm going to rent my house for $5,000. So it affects the numbers across the board, which is causing the issue of sticky inflation.
Here's one thing I want to put into this. Shelter was big weight in shelter, like you're saying. It's 40% of the number. However, food rose 0.5%. Food at home groceries up 0.6%. Food away from home, restaurants, etc., 0.3%. Energy index up 0.7%. Gasoline prices up 1.9%. Used cars, trucks, 1%. Airline fares, 5.9%. Apparel up. New vehicles up. It's not just shelter. Everything was actually worse than shelter. If we're looking at food, if we're looking
The
at
shelter component of it really is what rose the numbers. It's still relatively manageable, but when you have such a weighting on such an arbitrary number, food is clear. You know what the cost is. Last month, milk was $4. This month, milk is $4.10. There's variance. But with shelter, you don't, because shelter didn't rise nearly as much as last month did. But all of a sudden, because people feel differently, we're going into the good time to rent. But I want to move on. What was the consumer price index, the CPI? How did that come out?
These were all the CPI numbers. The total
this was
CPI,
CPI.
core CPI.
What about the PPI? I apologize.
Got it, no problems. The PPI, August versus July, the final demand PPI was down to 0.1%. That's 2.6% year over year. From July, we saw a monthly change for final demands minus foods, energy, and trade of up 0.3%. Our total final demand was 2.6 in total. but less foods, energy, and trade, it's 2.8. So 2.6 is not
overall,
the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. But normally, if we didn't have any other news to offset the CPI number, the market would have gotten destroyed. But today, the jobless claims numbers came in at 263,000, which is 30,000 more claims than estimates. And it's the highest it's been since almost 4 years ago, which is right around COVID.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing. Everyone is worried about that. So the market didn't react nearly as aggressively, I think it would have if we didn't have that offset. We're pretty much locked in for a 1/4 point cut next week. That's what all indications are. Now you're starting to hear people say 50 basis points could be on the table because of these economic numbers. Do I think that's feasible? I personally don't. I think a 1/4 is what we're going to get. Let's move on to the next one. This is interesting, the BLS. There was an article that came out. This is where it gets interesting. Alan, what was that article? It was in the Wall Street Journal. A couple of different publications picked it up, that the overall number of jobs was overstated by 911,000 jobs.
That's exactly right. So they do their revisions, just like you see the initial jobless numbers each month, then a revision a month later, then a third number comes out. A year later, they use actual data from the quarterly census of employment and wages, tax data, all that stuff, and they give a final annual revision. And that revision is what you're seeing, 911,000 less jobs than originally thought.
That's a big oopsie right
So if you look at that, you have 911,000 jobs over 12 months. What's that? 60 some odd thousand, 70,000 jobs a month.
I think.
Yeah.
So imagine you've had
75.
12 months of reports, and on average, you overstated the jobs by 75,000 jobs. People thinking the market is so much stronger than it really is. Those periods of time, numbers came out. Some were blowout months, so the bond market got affected, people got affected, pricing got affected, everything got affected. But where do you go from that? I'm pissed. As a homeowner, I'm pissed. As someone in the professional mortgage industry, I'm mad because that affects people. We just have a BLS chairman, a president, whatever you want to call it. What are we going to say to all of the Biden people that had them in place? What happened? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, last year's March report, like this one with the 911 less jobs, last year's was a revision down of 818,000 as well. It seems like a common theme for these annual revisions to just be like, okay, the truth is much less. 900 and 800,000 are not that far apart. That's a massive amount of jobs that were overstated every single.
Can you pull that up? Because I'm curious if it's a trend.
But in the meantime, what do you guys think is because you're saying specifically the BLS is, I'm going to call you up and ask you a question and trust your answer. And then we get the real numbers a year later. What is their solution to this?
I mean, the methodology of how they count it has got to change.
Yeah,
I agree.
I didn't go to college for this. I can't say that I have a solution, but common sense, which I said I was going to bring today, it's not working, and it's costing people money. It's causing hardship throughout the economy. This is unacceptable, and it needs to be addressed. They need to put the right people in place to come up with solutions. It can't go on.
I feel the ADP numbers are probably better than the BLS because ADP has actual numbers based on payroll. So at least there's something you can hang your hat on. It's just completely arbitrary. And that's what bothers me. Imagine all those people over the last 12 months affected because mortgage rates feasibly could have been lower right now because the job market was not what everyone thought it was. So we had all this time where rates were artificially higher, where they could have been lower, and who knows where the economy would be now.
It's hard to play the what if game in this scenario, but there's no denying that everyone has been affected by the lack of efficiency of the data that's being produced, and that is causing undue hardship to the American people. That's why I say data matters so much, and they really need to look at that.
You're pro the other side, and for a lot of the time, the other side's appointees were running the show over there. What are your thoughts? You get affected by this personally because it affects your wallet. Putting your political views aside, what are your thoughts?
I think that's an interesting question to ask, considering it's a nonpartisan group of people appointed by all the presidents, and it's not one side or the other.
The last president was appointed by Biden, just to let you know.
But that's what I'm saying. Like now your current head is going to be appointed by Trump.
What do you think?
What do I think?
What do you
is
think?
The idea that it's one side's fault is ridiculous. I don't think that.
Okay.
I think you're right. Like a survey system is ridiculous. I don't understand how
Yeah.
you can call somebody and ask them a question and just be like, yep, we're running our country on that information.
Agreed.
That's the whole point. You're running your whole country on this point. We just had someone new appointed as a Fed governor who's got voting rights. And I find it very interesting how they made it in right when it's the new vote and they're dovish, they're pro cutting and everything. So that's going to be interesting. And I'm still curious to see if they can get Lisa Cook out in time so her vote doesn't count for next week.
Side.
I believe you're going to have the majority of them be pro-cutting for sure. Some will be pro-cutting more. I know Fed Governor Waller is definitely up there. He's been a big proponent of cutting. But I don't want to get too far deviated from this. But the main topic now is I just want to get to Charlie Kirk. And I really don't know much about him. I don't follow politics to that degree. I just like to grind you, Alan, on this. Other than that, I'm really not a politics person. The guy's got a wife and kids who were at the event. And I didn't even know. Jason was saying he was wearing a bulletproof vest. This guy got shot. You knew exactly what was happening. Jason, if you want to share what you heard about that, the way he got shot and how he died, because it's terrible.
Yeah, just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true. What happened was appalling, and no one should ever be silenced for an opinion. Unfortunately, you got to see the unedited video of the moment when he was actually struck. At first, you might think that the injury was to the neck itself.
That's what I thought
initially. But I watched CSI forensic person describe it step by step, and there were things that led them to believe he was shot in the shoulder or upper shoulder area, and it was most likely a ricochet of the bullet that went out through his neck. It's just very unfortunate that this happened, and especially in front of his family and everything else. It's just no room for this in our communities, or the division thing needs to stop. You can't have tantrums. It's not the gun's fault. It's the person's fault. I strongly believe in that. So just want to say my 2 cents on that. May he rest in peace.
Thank you.
But you know what sucks? Ben Shapiro canceled all his college speaking events for the near future. This is affecting it across all levels. It causes fear, which is terrible.
Free speech, Meyer, is preventing free speech. It can't happen. That just has to be off limits across the board. It's ridiculous to feel unsafe. How many people out there support a candidate and are ashamed to say it, right? Because their fear of outcasting by other people and political opinions. This whole politics thing has gotten so out of control these days that you can't speak freely and have cordial conversations. And that's the whole thing that he promoted. He wanted to give a platform to the people. Prove me wrong is what he said at his things. He's well set in what he's saying. He understands the issue. He believes in what he believes. He was a Christian through and through. Regardless of where you sit on religion or politics, I jaw back and forth with Alan quite a lot. I have conservative values. He's a lot more liberal, which is fine. But I'm never in the point where I'm going to be threatened violence. It's absolutely deplorable and not acceptable across the board. And anyone that agrees with that these kind of things are okay to take out opponents of free speech, that injure people that don't have your same opinion, shame on you.
What was his platform? He would go out and debate people and say, hey, talk to me about a topic. Was it a specific topic, or he would say, just talk to me about anything?
Well, go back to when he started, Jason, 13 years ago, why he did this.
So he actually worked for Trump on the campaign and started having ideals. He's very witty, very educated. Although he didn't go to college, he was saying college is a scam. He would basically challenge the thought of one, the media, to the liberal narrative, everything from Black Lives Matter to everything controversial. He wanted to bring up and be able to give a platform to educate the younger voters of, you might be indoctrinated or subject to be around other ways of thinking or being told certain things. I would like to show you the other side and give them an opportunity to come up and speak in a safe place, where he constantly told his people, although I may not agree with these people or they might not agree with me, they're allowed to speak, and we're going to be respectful and do everything that the other side doesn't let us do. He would try and control the crowds that way. and give them the opportunity to speak. Some people really embraced it. Some people are so far gone that they can't even have a conversation. They come down to insults, threats of violence, this and that. And now look at it. There's other influencers that are afraid to speak about what they believe in, their core beliefs. He's bringing up the root of what America was in the 50s and 60s, not for the racial stuff, but more for the core value of family, love, God, country, patriotism was his main focus.
Alan, what are your thoughts?
You got to immediately start with there can be no political violence. The answer is never shooting anybody. We've seen more political violence in the last 4 years than any time in history. I'm certain of it. Minnesota had those governors or whoever they were, the politicians, someone broke into their house and killed them with their daughter right there. This is happening to both sides of the aisle. Do you remember Governor Shapiro, who is Jewish, and his house got set on fire?
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about political violence on scales that just wasn't happening 10 years ago. I don't remember every other week being a shooting, being an attack. It's at the point now where this can't be the answer and something has to happen.
Absolutely.
But as far as Charlie Kirk himself, I never agreed with what he said, but I like the fact that he went to a college campus and would go talk to me. The guy's on a stage in front of hundreds of people and he's, okay, here's my point of view. You come up to the mic, you tell me your point of view. If more politics was done like that, I would be incredibly happy. His methodology was fine. I don't have any qualms with how he communicated, what he was doing, and how he did it. It's just the things that he said that I would personally disagree with, but I would never say that not be allowed to say those things just because you disagree, let alone take action against that person. If Jason and I were at each other's throats every time we had a political conversation, we wouldn't be friends. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Do you think any of these school shootings or anything are tied to political type of biases, or those are just completely separate thing? Because it makes you think they're almost tied together within different things of happening. It makes you wonder, right? Is it just to instill?
What was it, the shooter had what written on their gun? The other week, whatever school shooting it was weeks ago, that they had fuck Trump, et cetera, et cetera. It was political in the shooting. It was definitely political.
You got to understand through the media and the platforms that are out there, we all love America for the freedom of speech. But with great power comes great responsibility. When you're out there and you're having narratives where you're calling people Nazis, you're calling people anti-Semitic, whatever it may be, that is pushed consistently by our leaders of Congress and the Senate. The quorum is so important because of how influential these people are in the communities and the country they live in. The reason it's divisive is because we keep bringing up things in a certain way and being able to use certain words so freely, like racist, like anti-Semitic, Hitler, come on, Hitler? That is crazy. I'm going to pull one thing out of a hat and say it's been common. Stop reading the Nostradamus book. Just because a bird flew a certain way over a pyramid at this time of day doesn't mean that person's that thing. Stop already. It needs to be real news reporting. They need to be aware of when they try and get gotcha questions and whatever else.
Jason, fake news or that type of news sells. People get enamored by that.
Cable news. Yeah. That's why it sucks.
But it's no longer news. It's sprinkles of news coming in.
Yep. It's opinion based. It's not factual based. I can go on news and say anything I want for the most part and get away with it. I can accuse people of doing anything. It's the smear, right? I'm going to go out and say something negative. It'll hit the news cycle, go through people's heads, and then they'll do a small retraction. It's too late because the opinion's out there. Politics is horrible. This is the great experiment. We're coming up on 250 years of being a nation, right? This is the great experiment. Who knows how long it'll last? But at this rate, with everyone being divisive and worried about Republican, Democrat, whatever it may be, it just needs to come to a part where we are one nation under God, indivisible.
With liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Where negativity sells, it's so prevalent across every form of communication. Every single thing is negative and people are just being mean to each other. When did you last go on CNN where they weren't bashing Republicans? And when did you last go on Fox where they weren't bashing Democrats? We're no longer caring about helping each other or being a team. Now it's just, how angry can I make my guys at their guys? It's constant, and it's why we're so divided.
And the reason is, at every divisiveness, there's always needs to be a good leader, right? Now, with us changing our presidents every 4 years through a different ideology and different plans, and it's constantly going to go back and forth, and it's harder to move forward with, say, there's a majority on one side versus the other, or there's a majority where they have both the House and the Senate, and they're pushing through narratives. Now, both are doing what they think is best for the country. But what people are tired of, in my opinion, is the constant back and forth, negative talk towards each other, and these cable news networks not being held accountable for their opinion-based news. It's really an issue when I can have a panel of 5 people on one side, one person for the other. They all bash and say the worst things possible and think it's okay. Just stop already. Speak the truth. Have a debate. Go back with facts. Again, data. Get rid of these bullshit news organizations.
News became 24 hours. It did stop becoming news.
Yep. CNN was the first one.
Yep.
We're gonna have to get facts, but not from the BLS.
In a year, it'll be different.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
God bless everyone. Our hearts and prayers are with all.
Thank you. God bless.
Yes. Please be safe, everyone.
Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up.